Hi friends, I'm back in the classroom again. It's been nice to get out of the house a bit and yeah, be in a good familiar place. Still makes me miss you more than ever, but it also makes me feel a little closer to the class, actually being in a place that reminds me of you. Today we're starting the last book of the Iliad. Yes, we are sadly skipping book 23, which is really too bad. Book 23 is a fun chapter. You wouldn't expect that a chapter about a funeral would be fun, but it actually is because of the way that the ancient Greeks celebrated funerals. We think of funerals as pretty sad occasions, and they were for the Greeks, like they are today. But they really viewed them as a time to memorialize the person's life and to do something enjoyable that would make them remember the person who died. And so they would often have what are called funeral games. And rich people, famous people would have these funeral games. And what would happen is there'd be a lot of competitions at the funeral, and you would participate in them and win some prizes. And so, of course, they have all of these amazing warriors at the funeral. And so they have a chariot race, throwing javelins, throwing this thing that's kind of like a metal frisbee, a foot race, all sorts of different ancient Greek games. And various people win them. Ajax wins some. Odysseus wins some things. Nestor's son wins some of the games. And they get different prizes like nice tripods and chariots and horses, all those sorts of things. There's also a wrestling competition, a boxing competition. It is very exciting and fun. It's kind of a nice relief from the seriousness of the rest of the book, especially lately. And I would very much commend that chapter to you. I would highly recommend you to read it if you get a chance. I know you're probably busy with a lot of things right now, but it is really fun. So if you have a chance to go back and read it, do it. But we are going to be reading chapter 24, book 24 today, so that we can finish up this story this week and get ready for finals week. Page 425 is where this begins, and this picks up right after the funeral games have ended. The assembly now broke up, and the people went their ways, each to his own ship. There they made ready their supper, and then bethought them of the blessed boon of sleep. But Achilles still wept for thinking of his dear comrade, and sleep, before whom all things bow, could take no hold upon him. This way and that did he turn, as he yearned after the might and manfulness of Patroclus. He thought of all they had done together, and all they had gone through, both on the field of battle and on the waves of the weary sea. As he dwelt on these things, he wept bitterly, and lay now on his side, now on his back, and now face downwards, till at last he rose, and went as one distraught to wander upon the seashore. I'm sure you've had those nights before where you just toss and turn, you can't get comfortable in your bed, and you just keep thinking about something. Well, Achilles is, now that the fun of the funeral games is over, he's just thinking about how much he misses Patroclus, his best friend. And so he goes and takes a walk. Then, when he saw dawn breaking over beach and sea, he yoked his horses to his chariot and bound the body of Hector behind it so that he might drag it about. Thrice did he drag it round the tomb of the son of Menetius, and then went back into his tent, leaving the body on the ground full length and with its face downwards. But Apollo would not suffer it to be disfigured, for he pitied the man, dead though he now was. Therefore he shielded him with his golden aegis continually, that he might take no hurt while Achilles was dragging him. So to get some of these tough emotions out, Achilles just beats up Hector's body. Thankfully, Apollo is protecting the body from being maimed and disfigured so that if the Trojans are able to get it back, it's still preserved the way it would have been if he had just died. Thus, shamefully did Achilles in his fury dishonor Hector. Now we're going to move a few pages forward to page 429, so please turn there while I talk. In between, we have this conversation among the gods about what should happen next. They're talking about how, yes, Achilles did kill Hector and fairly win that fight. Fairly if you count that Athena helped him. But Apollo says, can we at least return this wonderful warrior to his people? And Zeus says yes. Remember that Zeus does like Hector, even though he doesn't want the Trojans to win. He likes Hector decently. It's hard not to like Hector. And so Zeus sends Iris to go talk to Priam, Hector's father, and to encourage Priam to go and talk to Achilles. That seems like a horrible idea, and a lot of other characters are going to think that it's a horrible idea. But the gods have decided that they will protect Priam and that they will allow him to go talk to Achilles and then make a deal with him about returning Hector's body. So we are starting on the bottom of 429 where Iris is talking and she says, take heart. Take heart, she said, Priam, offspring of Dardanus. Take heart and fear not. I bring no evil tidings, but am minded well towards you. I come as a messenger from Zeus, who though he be not near, takes thought for you and pities you. The Lord of Olympus bids you go and ransom noble Hector, and take with you such gifts as shall give satisfaction to Achilles. You are to go alone, with no other Trojan, save only some honored servant, who may drive your mules and wagon, and bring back to the city the body of him whom noble Achilles has slain. You are to have no thought nor fear of death, for Zeus will send the slayer of Argus to escort you. When he has brought you within Achilles' tent, Achilles will not kill you, nor let another do so, for he will take heed to his ways and sin not, and he will treat a suppliant with all honorable courtesy. So Iris says, the gods have decided that they want you to be able to go and retrieve Hector's body, so go and don't worry about your safety. Iris went her way when she had thus spoken. You can see a picture of her there speaking to Priam. Priam looks kind of funny in that picture, not gonna lie. And Priam told his sons to get a mule wagon ready and to make the body of the wagon fast upon the top of its bed. Then he went down into his fragrant storeroom, high vaulted and made of cedar wood, where his many treasures were kept. And he called Hecuba his wife. Wife, said he, a messenger has come to me from Olympus, and has told me to go to the ships of the Achaeans to ransom my dear son, taking with me such gifts as shall give satisfaction to Achilles. What think you of this matter? For my own part, I am greatly moved to pass through the host of the Achaeans and go to their ships. So he's gotten this divine message from the gods to go, but he calls his wife and he says, what do you think about this? Well, she understandably does not think that's a great idea because Achilles has killed a lot of her sons. She doesn't want her husband to die too. His wife cried aloud as she heard him and said, alas, what has become of that judgment for which you have been ever famous, both among strangers and your own people? What are you thinking? Why are you making such a poor judgment call? How can you venture alone to the ships of the Achaeans and look into the face of him who has slain so many of your brave sons? You must have iron courage, for if the cruel savage sees you and lays hold on you, he will know neither respect nor pity. Let us then weep Hector from afar, here in our own house. For when I gave him birth, the threads of overruling fate were spun for him. That dogs should eat his flesh far from his parents, in the house of that terrible man, on whose liver I would fain fasten and devour it. Thus would I avenge my son, who showed no cowardice when Achilles slew him, and thought neither of flight nor of avoiding battle, as he stood in defense of Trojan men and Trojan women. Then Priam said, I would go. So unfortunately, his wife's begging him to stay does not move his heart. He says he still wants to go. Do not therefore stay me, nor be as a bird of ill omen in my house, for you will not move me. If you look at the bottom of his paragraph, he says, let Achilles slay me if I may, but first have taken my son in my arms and mourned him to my heart's comforting. So for Hecuba, she just doesn't want to lose another dear relative of hers, another family member. For Priam, he would rather see Hector one more time and then die. So they have an argument here, and Hecuba is more upset than ever because not only has she lost numerous sons and her beloved Hector, but she may also be losing Priam. Over the next couple of pages, Priam collects presents for Achilles. They're the typical things: gold, cauldrons, tripods, different beautiful clothing, special fancy cups, all those sorts of things that are going to make Achilles want to agree. And then he has his sons prepare a wagon to take him over there. Unfortunately, he says a bunch of terrible things to his sons about how he doesn't like them as much as Hector, and it's kind of sad. We are picking up on page 433 in the middle paragraph. Thus heedfully did Priam and his servants see to the yoking of their cars at the palace. Then Hecuba came to them, all sorrowful, with a golden goblet of wine in her right hand, that they might make a drink offering before they set out. She stood in front of the horses and said, "Take this. Make a drink offering to Father Zeus. And, since you are minded to go to the ships in spite of me, pray that you may come safely back from the hands of your enemies. Pray to the son of Cronus, lord of the whirlwind, who sits on Ida and looks down over all Troy. Pray him to send his swiftest messenger on your right hand, the bird of omen which is strongest and most dear to him of all birds, that you may see it with your own eyes and trust it as you go forth to the ships of the Danaans. If all-seeing Zeus will not send you this messenger, however set upon it you may be, I would not have you go to the ships of the Argives." And Priam answered, "Wife, I will do as you desire me. It is well to lift hands in prayer to Zeus, if so be he may have mercy upon me." So Hecuba comes humbly and says, "I know that you don't like the opinion I have about this, but will you please take this wine that I've collected for you and make an offering to Zeus and just ask that he confirm the message to you?" Which is a good idea because you never really know with the gods. And so she says, pray to Zeus that if you're supposed to go, that he will send a sign. And that sign is an eagle. And Priam says, all right, that's a good idea. I will pray to Zeus and I will ask that he confirm the message with a sign by sending an eagle. And so Priam pours the wine. He goes through the ceremony of making a sacrifice. And he prays to Zeus and says, if this is your will, send me the sign of an eagle. And Zeus sends an eagle. So Zeus confirms, yes, Priam, you can go safely. Hecuba still is not happy about this, but she feels a little bit better because she at least feels that he has the protection of the gods. So they start out on their journey. He goes with a guy named Idaeus, a servant who goes with him. So we're on page 434 now. Starting in, it's about 2/3 down, but Priam and Idaeus. But Priam and Idaeus, as they showed out upon the plain, did not escape the ken of all-seeing Zeus, who looked down upon the old man and pitied him. Then he spoke to his son Hermes, the messenger god, and said, Hermes, for it is you who are the most disposed to escort men on their way, and to hear those whom you will hear, go and so conduct Priam to the ships of the Achaeans, that no other of the Danaans shall see him, nor take note of him until he reach the son of Peleus. So Zeus wants to make sure someone is physically protecting Priam the whole way. So he sends Hermes down to accompany him. Thus he spoke, and Hermes, guide and guardian, slayer of Argus, did as he was told. Forthwith he bound on his glittering golden sandals, with which he could fly like the wind over land and sea. He took the wand with which he seals men's eyes in sleep, or wakes them just as he pleases, and flew, holding it in his hand till he came to Troy and to the Hellespont. To look at, he was like a young man of noble birth, in the heyday of his youth and beauty, with the down just coming upon his face. So he looks like a young guy who's just started to have some facial hair grow. Now when Priam and Idaeus had driven past the great tomb of Ilus, they stayed their mules and horses that they might drink in the river. for the shades of night were falling. So it's getting on towards evening. They're on their journey and they decide to take a break and get a drink. When therefore Idaeus saw Hermes standing near him, he said to Priam, "Take heed, descendant of Dardanus. Here is matter which demands consideration. I see a man who I think will presently fall upon us. Let us fly with our horses, or at least embrace his knees and implore him to take compassion on us." So Idaeus sees Hermes, who is disguised as a regular human being, and he says, we need to either run right now or we need to beg this man for mercy, because he figures he's an Achaean guard. When he heard this, the old man's heart failed him, and he was in great fear. This is a really squeaky table. I don't know if you can hear that. All right, I think it's done. He stayed where he was as one dazed, and the hair stood on end over his whole body. But the bringer of good luck came up to him and took him by the hand, saying, "Whither, father, are you thus driving your mules and horses in the dead of night, when other men are asleep? Are you not afraid of the fierce Achaeans who are hard by you, so cruel and relentless? Should some one of them see you bearing so much treasure through the darkness of the flying night, what would not your state then be? You are no longer young, and he who is with you is too old to protect you from those who would attack you. For myself, I will do you no harm, and I will defend you from anyone else, for you remind me of my own father." So Hermes comes up pretending to not know the situation, and he says, "What are you doing out here? This is really dangerous. Will you let me protect you? You remind me of my father, and I want to protect you." And Priam answered, "It is indeed as you say, my dear son. Nevertheless, some god has held his hand over me, in that he has sent such a wayfarer as yourself to meet me so opportunely. You are so comely and mean in figure, and your judgment is so excellent that you must come of blessed parents." Then said the slayer of Argus, guide and guardian, "Sir, all that you have said is right. But tell me, and tell me true, are you taking this rich treasure to send it to a foreign people where it may be safe? Or are you all leaving strong Ilium in dismay, now that your son has fallen, who was the bravest man among you, and was never lacking in battle with the Achaeans?" So continuing to pretend not to be Hermes, Hermes asks, "Are you running away? Or are you taking this treasure somewhere safe?" And Priam said, "Who are you, my friend? And who are your parents, that you speak so truly about the fate of my unhappy son? How do you know this about me? How do you know that Hector just died? How do you know that I'm King Priam?" The slayer of Argus, guide and guardian, answered him, "Sir, you would prove me, that you question me about noble Hector. Many a time have I set eyes upon him in battle, when he was driving the Argives to their ships, and putting them to the sword. We stood still and marveled, for Achilles, in his anger with the son of Atreus, suffered us not to fight. I am his squire, and came with him in the same ship. I am a Myrmidon, and my father's name is Polyctor. He is a rich man, and about as old as you are. He has 6 sons besides myself, and I am the 7th. We cast lots, and it fell upon me to sail hither with Achilles. I am now come from the ships onto the plain, for with daybreak the Achaeans will set battle in array about the city. They chafe at doing nothing, and are so eager that their princess cannot hold them back." So Hermes creates this fake backstory for himself about how he is Achilles' squire. So he's like an assistant to Achilles. Then answered Priam, "If you are indeed the squire of Achilles, son of Peleus, tell me now the whole truth. Is my son still at the ships, or has Achilles hewn him limb from limb and given him to his hounds?" So Priam asks, "Is it still worth it for me to come after his body, or is it destroyed and fed to the dogs?" "Sir," replied the slayer of Argus, guide and guardian, "neither hounds nor vultures have yet devoured him. He is still just lying at the tents by the ships of Achilles, and though it is now 12 days that he has lain there, his flesh is not wasted, nor have the worms eaten him, although they feed on warriors. At daybreak, Achilles drags him cruelly round the sepulchre of his dear comrade, but it does him no hurt. You should come yourself and see how he lies, fresh as dew, with the blood all washed away, and his wounds, every one of them closed, though many pierced him with their spears. Such care have the blessed gods taken of your brave son, for he was dear to them beyond all measure. So Hermes says, you should come see the body for yourself. The gods have been protecting it, and all of the wounds have been healed up, and none of the terrible things Achilles has done to the body since it was deceased have had any effect on its look. And so Priam now has someone who's going to safely guard him the rest of the way to meet Achilles. And that's where we'll pick up tomorrow. Have a good day. I miss you.